May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be ever acceptable to you, O God, my Redeemer. Let us say amen. The Lord is near. We got to light the pink candle. Christmas is coming. The Lord is near. Can you feel it? I'm sure you have your to-do list. I need to get this present. I need to do this thing. I need to go to the grocery store for this party. All the things, because the Lord is near. Because we do these things, because we celebrate community, we celebrate that God came in the form of the most vulnerable child. We know our role in this world to take care of the most vulnerable around us. And the Lord is near when we do this together. Or do we know that the Lord is near? I don't know about you. There are many moments in this season that I don't feel the Lord near, namely when I try to get my kids to school. Lord is not near. In fact, I don't recognize myself half the time when I'm pleading with my 6-year-old to come down the stairs so we can go to school. No! You get me! And I'm sitting at the bottom of the steps going, no. You come down. But that is me. And the Lord is near. I am reminded because there are those moments, and Maggie actually reminds me. So I'm there and I'm like, no, you come down. She's like, Mom, are you okay? And I go, oh, please, God, help me right now. I know, the 8 o'clock, they like that joke, but you know. So the Lord is near. Do we sense it? How do we sense it? How do we bring this Lord is near to other people? Like, do they sense that from us as people of faith? I'm not talking about everybody else outside of here. I do care what they do on a Sunday, but like, you're the ones here. You're the ones here trying to strengthen your faith and your commitment and your practice to the most weak and the most vulnerable in our society. They can tell if the Lord is near in your life. Just think for a second. How can you tell? How can you tell when you see somebody else or you interact with someone, whether or not it's in the church or beyond the church, at your work? How can you tell that the Lord is near to their life? How can you tell? These are rhetorical questions. I also kind of want you to turn to your neighbor, but I'm not going to have you do that today. But I think this is a really good question that you can begin to ask yourself every day if you don't already feel it. How do I demonstrate? What is the fruit of my being near God that other people can tell? How can I tell? Well, for me, I look at these stars. So grateful for people taking a risk and doing something new and having fun to be able to gift us with this joy. So thank you to the Long Ritchie family. Thank you to the Vanderlooks for spending this time on your Saturday to bring us joy. Did y'all hear the chimes this morning? Thank you, property. Thank you, property team. And hopefully on Nextdoor, so many times we hear on the Nextdoor app that a lot of people aren't their best selves on that app and tell us things about our chimes. But really, I think, Tish, you were the one who told me when they first started dropping and we didn't hear, we got over 75 people telling us that they really miss the chimes. Right? So thank you to the property team, and in particular, Vic Carboni, who found the wire. So we thought that it was like this big issue, and that we were one of 3 places, and this guy is going out of business, and he's the only one that knows. And Vic just kind of looks around. He finds a faulty wire, connects it, and all of a sudden it's working. So again, how close are you to God? Because God is always there, everybody. Now, is your back turned to God? Is your face turned to God? Are you side by side by God? Because God has always been here. That wire has always been here to be connected. These stars have always been here to be put up. Our friendships are always here. The weak and vulnerable are always here for us to be connecting with. Yes, we will celebrate that 6 more families who have trouble on Christmas will be able to gift their families, their little ones, with gifts and food and everything. So again, come next Sunday to help us to wrap presents, to donate your food items, all those things. Yes, and we feel God close in those moments. And what else are we to do? So that gospel is a hard one, but it's a great one. If you're John is like, this is all good news, everybody. And people are looking at him like, why are you telling me it's good news that I have to change my ways? So as usual, I commend the readings to you. So take the bulletin home. Because every single one of those readings could be a good invitation for you to experience joy no matter what your circumstances. For example, the first lesson is from Zephaniah, a minor prophet, not a big deal. Lovely song, a joyful song, an expression of God's redemption. And it's hopeful because it hasn't happened yet. Because if you look at the beginning of that chapter, it begins with, "Woe to those of you who oppress us." Zephaniah was a minor prophet in Judah, and particularly in the city of Jerusalem, where the leaders were oppressing God's people. So that song of praise is only because Zephaniah is faithfully willing to go and stretch and say, this is not forever. And I believe in a God that doesn't want this turmoil and this strife and this struggle for us. In fact, I believe in a God who comes to those who need God the most. You take a look at the second lesson. Again, thanks, Bev, and thank you for reading the first one, Zephaniah. But Beth, you've got that great one that if we were just to read that very superficially, which, you may go home and read it superficially, rejoice in the Lord always, yay. Let us remember our namesake, Paul. Where did he write this from? Does anyone remember? From prison. From prison. This guy is in jail, and he is saying, rejoice in the Lord always. Where is he in his relationship with God? I'm going to go a little deeper into this one because it's so interesting to me. It's only 4 chapters, this letter to the Philippians, and he begins it with giving thanks. So Paul has been known to, go to be taken to jail. Let's just say that. He's been jailed a few more times than maybe he even wanted to. But because of the sake of the gospel, for the sake of the gospel, he was not just okay with it, but he knew that was a consequence that he could not avoid. So he goes into Philippi, and he starts healing people. So he and his friends start healing people, and people were healed. Well, you know what that did to the fortune tellers who were there in Philippi? It took away their business. So who complained to the authorities but the fortune tellers? They're taking away our business. These people, these Jews are coming and they're taking away all our business. Put them in jail. They don't belong here. So not only is he in jail for healing people, he is in jail because there is a system that doesn't believe he belongs there and doesn't want something better like healing for their people. So rejoice in the Lord always has a different ring to it because Paul is in this place where he is trying to offer hope to a people despite what the consequences are, everybody. Believe in this God who has given you something to care about and something to be for other people. And you can handle the consequence. Like, I'm going to be in jail, and I'm going to still be grateful to the people spreading the good news because that's what's on the line. It reminds me of the people who were fighting segregation in the 60s and had made a choice, knew that they could perfectly go to jail for sitting at a lunch counter because there was a rule that whites and blacks are not supposed to sit at the same counter. But they knew they had a belief and they had a community that performed this direct action and knew what the consequences were. And were they jailed? Yes. Were they singing in jail of God's praises? Yes. Sometimes I wonder about us here in Burlingame. How close is God to us that we would be willing, and we know what the consequence is in our society, and we would yet still pursue healing and pursue wholeness and pursue a just society if that caused me to change? This is what John's trying to get to in the gospel. Because people already were curious. I have a feeling all of us here are curious about how God will continue to invite us to unpack doing something different with our lives so that we can uplift all, so that all may be whole. I think we're curious. In the gospel, people were curious. So then what, Jesus? Or then what, John? Because right now, they're talking to John. So now what? So first he says, well, to all of you who are here, if you've got a second coat, who has a second coat? Yep, it's okay if you have 3, 4, 5, whatever. Somebody has a second coat. If you've got a second coat, share it, because there are some people who don't even have one. Very plain, very basic. If you've got food, how many people have food? I have food. Share it. Very simple, very plain. And then John gets specific because specific people have a question. Specifically, the tax collectors come up. I love this. Well, what about us? What should we do, John? And John's like, well, you have a prescription for how much the taxes are that they're supposed to give you. Don't get more. Don't ask more. Don't be greedy. It seems clear to us. I'm not going to ask you if you're a tax collector here to raise your hand. But for those of us who aren't, doesn't that seem plain? Doesn't that seem clear? Just don't be greedy. You have a job, do the job, and then you're done. So then they kind of walked away, though, a little sad and a little perturbed. Or maybe that was just a weird face, but they were really thinking about how that would change their life. And then the soldiers came. The soldiers came and said, well, what about us? John, what do we do? Well, stop extorting people. Stop falsifying their accusations. Stop threatening them already. I mean, I kind of hear that because, when I'm sitting on the bottom of the steps with Ale, and I'm like trying to get her coming down, I'm like, you're not going to watch a movie on Friday. Right? Like, all of a sudden, my threatening parent comes out because I don't know what else to do, right? So I related to these soldiers because they were given a task, and people weren't following the directions, and they would threaten, and they would abuse their power. All John was asking was, don't do that. Protect the people, do your job, but stop misusing your power. Do you think they left happy, rejoicing? Again, it seems plain to us. I'm not asking if any one of you is a soldier or in the military or in our law enforcement. But what I am asking is, who are you in our community, in our society? If you were to go up to John today and say, well, what about me, John? Would the prescription he gives you, would that be helpful to you? Would that be eye-opening to you about how you can get closer to God today? The God who comes in the form of the most vulnerable child to encourage us to take care of each other. Because there are weak and vulnerable people among us. We may be one of them that needs another person who hears the cry of the poor and knows that God is a God of compassion to come and redeem us. So, my friends, what is the good news for you this day? I wonder if you go home and start writing what your rejoice verses are and singing songs of praise in this relationship of God. I just wonder if you were jailed, if you were oppressed, if you were weakened in some capacity and did not feel whole, if you can touch those moments in your life, you may have greater capacity to knowing the God who comes in those moments, who redeems you, saves you, loves you, and encourages you to do likewise. Amen.